when the anxiety has to do with something that you're dealing with day to day, like there's anxiety over being in a public setting, right? Maybe you make it out to that public setting, and then while you're there, you start to get anxious, right? Or you're trying to overcome your anxiety of driving on the highway, so you're taking all these side streets, and then when you're like, I'm going to try it, but then when you go on the highway, the anxiety shows up, right? And then you're like driving now with this anxiety. So one of the things that I've come to appreciate and realize is that a lot of the times when that happens, it's because we're asking questions that are disempowering. The bottom line, we're always going to answer the questions that we ask ourselves. Most of the time, the question we ask ourselves, like if you're in a scary situation, is what if I pass out? What if I have to go to the bathroom and there's no bathroom? What if I crap in my pants? What if there's no kids around? What if the car crashes? If I get anxious and I pass? Those are the questions we ask ourselves, right? When you're in an anxious situation. Well, guess what? You're answering all of them subconsciously, and all your answers are bad, which means your focus goes to like a disempowering feeling, which, what did we say? What does that create? More anxiety because there's uncertainty and there's loss of control. So instead, you've got to have quality questions. And this is just like, man, this is not easy, but you have to ask yourself a different question, which means the moment you find yourself in a situation where you start to get anxious, you got to ask yourself something that will break that pattern of thinking. Instead of, what if I pass out right now in the 401 and there's nobody around? Who's going to take care of my kids tonight? You see how that's such a weird question to ask, but that's what people do ask, right? That's what goes through their head. So instead, you could say while you're panicked and nervous, what's funny about this? You see how that's like, it would totally break your thought process. What's funny about this right now? What am I going to laugh about this a week from now? What are my friends going to say when I tell them this story? Or if it's something totally different, you can just ask yourself, what's the benefit of this right now? How is this serving me? How am I going to learn from this? Do you see how just asking totally different questions makes your attention go to something that's more empowering? And then you start to feel like, oh yeah, I can handle it. It's not a big deal. Or it's just a break in pattern. Especially those that find themselves having the anxiety, like they can't sleep, there's constant thoughts in their mind, and they get anxious in the middle of the night, and then now they can't clear the head. They're asking a lot of disempowering questions during that period. Just shift the question. Just shift it. Make up a couple of questions for you that it's like the first question I'm going to ask when I get this symptom is this. And every time you ask it, it's almost like it jolts you because like, yeah, that's a stupid question. But yeah, it makes you laugh or it breaks your concentration or it's a more empowering question. Okay, rather than all the ways you've been asking yourself in the past.